Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. We look at chills, deathly search, peasants, pastels, minions, meat sacks. I'm useful idiot. Welcome. And wow, how about that? All this talk about a $5,000 check to every American as a DOGE rebate. And I know everybody's really excited about it. And let's look at the details a little bit. Of course, they say it won't really be inflationary, most stimulus checks, like given during the Biden administration, were very inflationary. But this is money being saved. So far, DOGE supposedly has saved government expenditures to the tune of 55 billion. And so Trump and Elon Musk are talking about the fact that they're going to give 20% of that back to the American people. And it's not clear yet whether they will be direct stimulus checks or will be part of a rebate in your tax return. So that will complicate issues somewhat, because then we have to look at the fact that if it's based on tax returns, there's a huge swath of the population that won't be getting the checks if they haven't actively been paying taxes at least the last year. At least I assume that. The other thing I think is a little um, unfortunate about this is the public announcement of it and the fact that apparently it's still being mulled over. And so for them to announce this and then they don't end up giving the checks would be a disaster, of course. But Trump pretty much comes through on his promises, although this isn't technically a promise. So I would imagine it's going to happen. And the other thing, of course, that's interesting about this to me is that a new report came out that said 25% of liberals and oh, wait a minute, I think it's 40% of liberals and 25% of Republicans are now going to boycott businesses based on politics. So we have all these different corporations now that are getting out of their DEI programs and are supportive of somebody like Elon Musk. And of course, we see this huge backlash against Tesla because of the hatred for Elon Musk. And so they're going to speak with their pocketbooks and their wallets. And on paper, I totally agree with that. I think people more often should have their political views. They can actually do more by restricting the amount of money that they put into companies who they don't agree with. And so I think that's a great way to address things. But of course, in this day and age, divided down political lines like we are, and this whole hatred of Trump and this whole hatred of Elon Musk now gives it all a bad taste for me. But then I also have to ask, so are liberals going to turn down these checks, or are they going to cash them? I think that's a legitimate question. If they're so incensed by everything that Trump and Elon Musk are doing, and that brings up a bottom line for me that's um, just disturbs me, and that's the fact that, for example, this whole downsizing of the government and finding all this corruption and waste and fraud is something that benefits all Americans, and you would think that most of the population would be on board with this. It's not a partisan thing. It's turned into a partisan thing. It's heavily politicized because the fact is, we know if the Biden administration had been finding all this inefficiency and waste and fraud and was attacking it with great fervor, then the liberal base would be all on board with it. But it's just distasteful to me that the fact that Trump is doing it and the Republicans are doing it and they're all against it. And I understand that a lot of the big reasons that they're against it is because of the media and the liberal politicians who are doing all this selective outrage and all this histrionics in public and complaining about all these programs and all these workers that are going to be affected by huge cuts in U.S. aid and other agencies. But the fact is, there's been a lot of talk for well over 100 years about addressing fraud, waste, and corruption in the government. And now somebody's really serious about it, and it seems like it's something that would benefit all Americans, all the histrionics and drama aside. And granted, as far as the public view of it, and particularly in the media and amongst the politicians, of course, there's a lot of drama associated. There's a lot of emotion, and and then of course the fact that one could argue that Trump is being pretty reckless about a lot of it. But I just try to bear in mind that he's from the private sector where he's the boss, and if he doesn't like employees or doesn't think they're productive, you just go and fire them. And of course, in the government, it's a lot more complex than that. But it still begs the question, something that's benefiting all Americans and in a huge way. And it looks like we're barely getting started. They should applaud it. And so I just factored that in. It's just unfortunate, but in the end, it seems like a smaller government is the way to go, particularly when there is so much bloated bureaucracy, there is so much redundancy, and a lot of this has been expansion over the last 100 years. Where back when Teddy Roosevelt was in the government, the U.S. Navy Department was 2 people. So and our Navy certainly was effective and ran well when Teddy Roosevelt was president, um, or rather when he was working in the Navy Department. I guess he wasn't president yet. But you know, the whole idea that these government entities just grow and grow exponentially, and all these thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people get paid on the payroll, and then these agencies are just there, and people get used to it. And they don't want their sacred cows attacked, and particularly when it's politicized, and everyone can point out how outrageous everything is without looking at the pragmatic fact that this is badly needed. And so that's another component of this. But hey, send me a $5,000 check. I'd be pretty happy about it. I don't care if it comes from the Republicans or the Democrats. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?